Welcome to episode 3 of Agile Estimation and Planning, and we'll carry the relative sizing discussion forward in this one. So, how do you do relative sizing, Agile? Well, there are many techniques to this. I'm going to teach you how we play planning poker. So, remember, we talked about t shirt sizes, right? There's this notion of relativity where you have an extra small, a small, medium, large, and an extra large. And in a similar way, we try to construct a scale for our project, and that scale is essentially proportional, not exact, but proportional, right? What does that mean? We have the scale of story points. What is a story point? It's a very arbitrary measure. Just like a meter at some point would have been an arbitrary measure, somebody came up with it, or an inch is an arbitrary measure, or you could have, the length of a thumb. As long as it's the same thumb that you're measuring and you say this is thumbs tall, three thumbs tall, well, you've got a measure, right? So every team, every software project is going to have its own measure of what a story point is. The only thing to keep in mind is that if you're saying something is 3 points big, then it's three times or roughly three times the size of a 1 point story. Now, as I mentioned, we play planning poker, and usually that happens with a card deck that looks like this. You can even do this with index cards. And if you're in Zoom and you're doing this remotely, you can do this through anonymous chats on Zoom as well. As you can see, I'm going to leave this on the screen for a while. Uh, you'll notice that the sequence isn't really absolutely based on Roman numerals, right? What I mean is that it's not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It goes from 1 to 2 to 3, but after that, you directly jump to 5, then you go to 8, then you go to 13, because it's loosely based on the Fibonacci series. Why is it based on the Fibonacci series? It's very simple. The bigger your estimate, the less likely it is that you're estimating it right. And hence, the moment it starts to get to slightly bigger estimates, there are tendencies to make mistakes, and hence you will see a bigger separation in numbers. So after 13, you will see it directly jumps to 20, and after 20, it directly jumps to 40. In general, you should never estimate that big. You should break down any requirement that seems probably bigger than 8 points. All right, so what's the pattern for doing team estimation? First things first, somebody, a product owner or a BA, reads out the user story so that everyone knows what needs to happen to complete the story. Next, developers throw the estimate. So if you have cards, you hold the card close to your chest, and then 1, 2, 3, you reveal the card, which has the number with your estimate. If you're on Zoom, then, well, 1, 2, 3, and you can type in your estimate into the chat box of Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, whatever you're using, right? Now, if everyone agrees, great, then you have consensus. You can just have a quick discussion and move on. But there is likelihood that there's going to be some variation. And if there is variation, you should discuss why that variation exists. So some developer might believe that there's already a framework that you can implement, and then the story is going to be quite easy to complete. And another developer might expect that there's some business complexity that others are not seeing. So having that discussion clarifies assumptions. And in case, well, there was some disagreement, you can clarify it in that round of discussion. You then do another round of throwing, and you keep doing this until the time you have consensus. And then finally, once you have consensus, you make notes of what assumptions the team had to arrive at this estimate and note down the estimate for that particular story. Always, always, always remember, we have to take notes because, well, all estimates are guesses, and those guesses are based on assumptions. So if the assumptions change sometime in the future, then you will have to change your estimate. All right, while we do this, I think you need to also understand the concept of a spike. Now, the spike is what an agile team does to conduct time boxed investigation to uncover any unknowns to develop a story. So, for example, there might be some technical complexity that the team just can't wrap their heads around when estimating the story, in which case, you, as the product owner or potentially the scrum master, needs to slot in time so that the team can figure out what that complexity really is. Now, this could be, well, a throwaway implementation or investigation into a framework that can speed up development. The situation can be very different for different accounts or different projects. Just remember to keep it time boxed, don't keep it going forever. And when it's done, a spike is usually throwaway. All you get from a spike is learning. A big principle to keep in mind when doing relative sizing is accuracy over precision. What does that mean? When I say it's going to take me about 4 points, that's what you need to know. It's about 4 points. Again, if you're using the Fibonacci series, then it's probably not 4 points. It's probably going to be 5 points. And you say it's about 5 points. It doesn't need to be 4.369 or 4.678 because that's precise, but you don't need to get to that level of precision. You need to be accurate over a period of time, which basically means that over a period of time, are you able to estimate correctly? And are you able to actually correlate your estimates to your team's capacity to doing work? And estimates, as you remember, are not the end all and be all. They aren't meant to cover all risks. By using things like the Fibonacci series, you can cover for some risks, but there are other practices that we use to cover for risks, which we'll discuss in later episodes. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next one.